What if I told you that the Quran might have already hinted at something like a multiverse? The concept of the multiverse is something that we find people talking about a lot today. We find lots of movies, lots of TV shows, lots of books, lots of fiction talking about this. But it's not just something we find in fiction, but also in the scientific community as well. But if you look in the Quran, if you look in the Sunnah, and you look at the statements of the companions, what you will find will really surprise you. But before we can talk about that, we need to understand what the multiverse is, what the idea of it is from a scientific perspective, and what scientists actually say about this. Now, the idea of a multiverse is the concept that outside of our universe, there are other universes. Or perhaps that even before our universe, there were other universes that existed. And maybe after this one as well. This is the idea of a multiverse. There are some people, some academics in the scientific community that are arguing that this is something that's not only possible, but it's more likely. But we also have a large body of scientists, of cosmologists, of theoretical physicists who say that this is actually something that's not really founded. There's no evidence of this, and it's really just a possibility, and it's not really something that we can prove. This seems to be the more correct position. Why? Because if we want to assess the possibility of there existing a universe outside of our universe, we have to understand that from a scientific perspective, science rests on the assumption or on the model of testing what we can observe. And if there is a universe outside of our universe, then is this really something that we can observe and test? The answer is no. And I'll just read a couple of quotes from some scientists and philosophers. The English philosopher Antony Flew, he says about the concept of the multiverse, he says, the fact that it is logically possible that there are multiple universes with their own laws of nature does not show that such universes do exist. There is currently no evidence in support of a multiverse. It remains a speculative idea. And he states this in his book, There Is a God, which he wrote at the end of his life in his 80s. This is a man who spent most of his life arguing for atheism and arguing against the existence of God. But in his 80s, right before he died, he wrote this book titled There Is a God, in which he argues that there is a designer, there is a God that has designed this world. So that's actually something interesting about him. But Antony Flew, what he's basically saying is that it remains something that's speculative. It's simply just something that you can have a fictitious idea about. It's not really something that is testable by science. It's not something that we can actually prove. We also have the cosmologist and theoretical physicist George Ellis, who states in an article, he says, what is new is the assertion that the multiverse is a scientific theory with all that implies about being mathematically rigorous and experimentally testable. I am skeptical about this claim. I do not believe the existence of those other universes has been proved or ever could be. Proponents of the multiverse, as well as greatly enlarging our conception of physical reality, are implicitly redefining what is meant by science. Like, what is science? This is really just all science fiction at the end of the day. We can't really ascertain the possibility of multiple universes outside of this world. So it's really something that we have to be neutral about from a scientific perspective. Now, what about an Islamic perspective? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, that all perfection belongs to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Could this have anything to do? Could there be worlds outside of our world? This is something that we don't know. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us, وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and He creates what you don't know. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us that there are creations, there are things that He has created that we don't know about. And perhaps we could never know about until He subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about it. So when it comes to this question, are there other worlds outside of our universe? This is something that not only from a scientific perspective should we be neutral about, but also from an Islamic perspective, we can say that it's possible, but we can't really say for certain, or we can't really be sure about the existence of other worlds outside of our own. Now, what's interesting is that there is a verse in Surah Al-Talaq, Surah number 65, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, Allahu alladhi khalaqa sab'a samawatin wa min al-ardi mithlahun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that Allah is the one who has created 7 heavens. Now heavens here, the word for it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses is samawat. And samawat refers to everything above us, right? The universe and what is perhaps beyond it, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He has created 7 of these. There are 7 layers of this. وَمِنَ الْأَرْضِ مِثْلَهُنْ, and of the earth like them. So this means that there are 7 earths out there. Now, what is the nature of these 7 earths? This perhaps is a topic for another video. I mean, let me know in the comments if this is something that you guys want to know more about, inshallah. But what are these 7 earths? There is a narration reported by Al-Bayhaqi, Al-Hakim, and others, in which Ibn Abbas, he comments on this verse. Ibn Abbas, he tells us what the idea of the 7 earths is. Ibn Abbas, he states that there are sab'a aradin, that there are 7 earths. في كل أرض نبي كنبيكم. In every single earth, there is a prophet like yours. وَنُوحٌ كَنُوحٍ وَإِبْرَاهِيمٌ كَإِبْرَاهِيمٍ وَعِيسَى كَعِيسَى. And there is a Nuh like our Nuh. There's an Ibrahim like our Ibrahim, and there is an Isa like our Isa. So you got the, just try to wrap your head around this. There are 7 earths, and in each earth, there are prophets like our prophets, existences like that of our own. Now, this narration right here is really interesting, but the problem with it, like Al-Bayhaqi and many others have stated, is that it is not authentic to Ibn Abbas. This is a shadh narration, and some muhaddithun even state that it's a munkar narration. I mean, this is a long discussion to discuss what is meant by these terms, but the point is that it is not authentic. This report either has some authenticity to it in the chain, but it goes against what is more authentic, or it's completely inauthentic. And you have many scholars that state this, as I mentioned, Al-Dhahabi, As-Suyuti. We also have some statements of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah weakening this report as well. There is a possibility that perhaps if this is authentic, that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, that he got this from the people of the book. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentions this narration in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, and he states that this is not authentic, but if it is authentic, then Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma would have gotten this from the people of the book, meaning from Jewish and Christian sources. And yes, the companions would sometimes narrate things from Jewish and Christian sources. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself, he allowed this. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Hadithu an bani Israel wala haraj," that narrate from the children of Israel, and there is no sin, there's no problem in this. So it is permitted for us as Muslims to mention things from their scriptures. There's no issue with this. But this is just a methodology of narrating. When it comes to our epistemological methodology, when it comes to what we consider facts and knowledge, then we have a totally different methodology. The Prophet ﷺ, he says about that لا تصدقوا أهل الكتاب ولا تكذبوهم. Do not believe the people of the book, nor reject everything that they say. So when it comes to the perspective of epistemology, what we consider to be knowledge and fact, then we remain neutral about the information that we find in the Jewish and Christian sources. Because there might be an element of truth to it, or there might be falsehood in it. When we take all of the information from the Jewish and Christian sources, we can group them into 3 categories. Number 1 is information that the Quran affirms. Then obviously we accept this information. Category 2, information that the Quran rejects. Like for example in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Isa, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he denies the fact that Isa alayhi salam was killed or crucified. So whenever we find information in their sources that affirm this is something that we reject. The third category of information we find in their sources is information that the Quran doesn't really affirm, nor does it reject. This information right here is on a spectrum. Generally speaking, we remain neutral, but there's information that is more likely and there's information that is less likely, right? But generally speaking, as I mentioned, we remain neutral concerning this category of information. According to what Ibn Kathir rahimahullah states, that if Ibn Abbas, if this is an authentic narration, which it is not, but hypothetically, if it was an authentic narration from Ibn Abbas, then most likely he got this from the people of the book. The Prophet ﷺ, he never said anything like this. We don't find any explicit mention of anything like this in the Quran. And if Ibn Abbas got it from the people of the book, then this kind of puts us in a position where it's something that we cannot flat out reject, but it's something that we can say is possible. Not like there was nothing said about this in the past, right? Perhaps you have this in the Jewish and Christian sources that Ibn Abbas took from, and perhaps there's an element of truth to this, but we can't accept it. It's not enough for us to say that this is very likely. We have to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now, there is a statement of scholars all across the Islamic tradition where they say about the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَعْلَمُ مَا كَانَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what was, وَمَا يَكُونَ, and what will be, and what is. وَمَا لَمْ يَكُنْ لَوْ كَانَ كَيْفَ يَكُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what does not exist. And Allah knows how it would be had it existed. We have to understand something, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, قَدْ أَحَاطَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عِلْمًا. Allah has encompassed everything in His knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge is so perfect that He knows what is necessary, and He knows all possibilities, and He also knows impossibilities as well. What do we mean by this? How does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know impossibilities? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions what would happen in impossible circumstances, and we know that these circumstances are impossible. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us what would happen had there been hypothetically multiple gods. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَفَسَدَتَا. That if there were multiple gods besides Allah in the world, then the heavens and the earth, they would be completely corrupted. There would be just corruption in the heavens and the earth if there were multiple gods. Now, I ask you, is it possible for there to be multiple gods? This is something that is impossible. It's impossible for there to be multiple gods. There's only one God of this universe. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us what would happen hypothetically if there were to be multiple gods. We have to understand something, that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions a hypothetical in the Quran, it does not denote possibility, right? It does not denote possibility. Even I can propose a hypothetical scenario that I don't believe is possible. For example, I can say that if God didn't exist, then we would be like this or that. This hypothetical statement is meant to prove a point. It's not meant to talk about an ontological possibility here. That's not the whole point of this, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions hypothetical scenarios, they don't necessarily mean that this is possible. It's completely impossible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows all of the impossibilities as well. So just think about this for a second. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you look at the story of Musa and Khidr, right? Musa alayhi salam, he's with Khidr, he goes with him on this journey. This is in Surah Al-Kahf, Surah number 18. And Khidr does some certain things based on hypothetical scenarios or possible scenarios. He damages the ship and he does other things. And when he does these things, Musa alayhi salam, he initially objects to them. But Khidr had told Musa alayhi salam that don't ask about anything until I tell you about it. And Khidr, he justifies everything that he did because of hypothetical possible scenarios that would play out if he had not done as he did. So this shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows all of the possible scenarios that would play out when certain factors are varied. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows how I would be if I was, maybe born in another land, if I was born and raised with another religion, or if we had a different ethnicity, or whatever the case is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows all of the infinite possibilities. Now, this is when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. But when it comes to the ontological reality, like these things actually existing, then we can't say that things exist infinitely in some kind of multiverse. There's no evidence of this, that it actually exists, right? This is something that we have to remain neutral about, and we don't know. Now, I want to throw something in here that I don't think it complicates things, but it does make things very, very interesting. There are some scholars in our tradition, great ulama, great scholars, who hold the view that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been creating. That there is a beginning to our world, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been creating. And there's no beginning and there's no end to Him creating. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, a lot of people, they misrepresent his position. And maybe this is a topic for another video. This is something that's a really long topic, right? Because it gets very deep. And as I mentioned, a lot of people misunderstand what Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah states. But this is his position. Number one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been creating. So there's no concept of a first creation. There's a hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he tells us that inna awwala ma khalaqa Allahu al-qalam, that the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created was the pen. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he has a different way of interpreting this hadith, as well as other texts that make it seem like there is a first creation. Now, I'm not stating that I agree with Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, but it's definitely something to explore, and it's something that scholars in the past have stated. Ibn Taymiyyah has a different way of interpreting these texts. He doesn't believe in a first creation. He also believes that there's nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created out of nothing. He believes that everything that was created came from a creation before. Not to say that there is an infinite, everlasting creation. No, every creation has a beginning, but every creation was preceded by something else that was created before it. This is his position. Could someone take this sort of model, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately knows best. This is something that we have no access to, and other scholars, they disagree with this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been creating forever. Like I said, this is a very long topic. But if someone takes this view of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, could an idea of a multiverse be accommodated through this idea or this model? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, perhaps. But it's something definitely to explore more. And at the end of the day, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَيَخْلُقُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and He creates what you don't know. Just like it's not really scientifically possible to prove or disprove it, also from a religious textual standpoint, we also can't really prove it or disprove it. We have to, at the end of the day, maintain intellectual humility and surrender the knowledge of this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He ultimately knows best.